Hello and welcome to an example of writing a function. When we talk about functions in algebra, we are very much thinking about input and output. So we're to write a function to calculate Greg's income. We're going to need some variables. So since we're trying to calculate his income, I'm going to use I for income. So let me read my statement here. And it says, my son Greg earned $15 each time he mowed Jack's yard. So when he was a young teen, we lived in a small neighborhood. Our neighbor was Jack. Jack was getting up in age, and he hired my son to mow his yard. So Greg's income is going to be based on whether or not he mows Jack's yard. So I'm going to use J, and J represents mowing Jack's yard. Now in algebra we have words and they describe what's going on in the function. So the income is what we're calculating. So that is actually called the output. That is our answer. Every time that we use this function rule, we're going to calculate income, and the algebra word for that is range. When we go to write a function, it is that letter for the range that goes first. So we are calculating income, and our income is based on an action, and that action goes in the parentheses. That action is mowing Jack's yard. So we are calculating income based on whether or not my son mows Jack's yard. So this mowing of Jack's yard is the input. That is what we have to do to get an income. And in algebra, that is called the domain. So we write a function rule then, which is the math that relates these two. So the way that we're going to figure out my son's income is we're going to take $15 and multiply it times each time he mows Jack's yard. So if he mows Jack's yards once, he'll income 15. If we put in a 2 here, mowing twice, income would then be 30. So this is a function written with function notation with our input and output, using the parentheses for the input, the domain, and using the output on the outside, income. This letter out here is what we're actually calculating. So let's make it all a little bit more complicated. He is hired to mow Mr. Bitterman's yard when he is on vacation. Mr. Bitterman has a fence yard which requires more trimming than Jack's yard, so he pays Greg $20 each time he mows. So now my son Greg has a second way of getting income. So I need another variable, and so I'm going to use B, and B will equal mowing Mr. Bitterman's yard. And I'm going to expand my function. So at least my experience is in high school algebra, we never worked with expanded functions, but in real life we do all the time because most of real life has more than one input. So we are still calculating income, but now my son has more than one way to get income. He can get income by mowing Jack's yard, or he can get income from mowing Mr. Bitterman's yard. So there are two separate inputs for this function. And I write my function rule. He gets $15 each time he mows Jack's yard. And, so I put a plus sign, he gets $20 each time he mows Mr. Bitterman's yard. So I have two inputs and I have still one output. I'm calculating income every single time. So let's see if we can use the function. So what we have going on is we're to calculate Greg's income if at the end of June he has mowed Jack's yard 5 times and he has mowed Mr. Bitterman's yard twice. Now when we do a problem like this, we want to continue with the structure we have in our formula. So I'm actually going to write this up above here. So we are calculating income, but everywhere that we see the variable J, we are going to put in a 5 because he has mowed Jack's yard 5 times. And everywhere we see a variable B, we are going to put in a 2 because he has mowed Mr. Bitterman's yard twice. So now, this specific value, when my input for J is 5 and my input for B is 2, I would have 15 times 5, replacing the J with its value, plus 20 times 2, again replacing the B with its value. And I can go to the calculator and do the math there, and I end up with $115. Not bad for a young teenager for the month of June. Okay, so the challenge, can you expand this even further? And so we have another statement. We're to write a new function for Greg's income if his parents are willing to pay him $10 for mowing our yard. So I'd love for you to pause the video and try this on your own before you watch me do it. When I do this extra piece, I need a new variable, so I'm going to use P for mowing his parents' yard. And I build upon what I had previously written for my function. So I am calculating income this entire time. I have input of mowing Jack's yard, mowing Mr. Bitterman's yard, and now mowing his parents' yard. And I have my formula, $15 every time he mows Jack's yard, an additional $20 every time he mows Mr. Bitterman's yard, and now an additional $10 every time he mows his parents' yard. And so I have written a function using function notation that captures the way that Greg can make income.